In this video, I'm going to show you how I created this circle pattern technique using both wet on wet and dry on wet techniques. So what you need is a piece of paper, like watercolor paper from your sketchbook. I've got my paint palette, a cup of water, and a brush. I'm not using my paint pen for this because it takes a lot of water. So I'm just going to use a cup of water and a brush. And I've chosen the warm color scheme, so you can do either warm or cool. I do not recommend doing a mix of both. So I'm going to start by really getting some color on my brush. I'm going to make it pretty wet. And I like to mix colors rather than use them straight from the palette. So I'm just going to mix like a light-ish yellow, add a lot of water. So this technique that I'm doing is kind of like targeting the wet on wet. So rather than wetting the entire paper, I'm going to use color to make a bunch of circles, and then I'm going to combine them so that they kind of like bleed together. So I'm just going to start by painting some circles, and I can add a little bit more pigment as I go or change whatever color I'm using. I'm a pretty messy painter, but if you guys are a little bit more particular, you can be a little more methodical about this. So I'm going to paint a different color, slightly different color, right next to it, and I'm just going to make them touch right at the edge right there. And the two colors should kind of bleed together, and if they don't, you can add a little more water to it. And then just going to kind of like keep adding some pigments to my really wet spot over here. Kind of mixing a bunch of colors together. And then I'm going to keep doing the same thing where I like make a circle, and then before they're dry, just let them touch just a little bit. You can change the size of your circles. You can also adjust how much your circles connect. And the more they connect, the more bleeding over you will have. So the more water you add, the more your colors are going to bleed together. I'm adding purple into mine just to create some contrast. So I think purple can be either warm or cool color scheme. So I just dipped in the water, and that helps the colors bleed a little bit together, which is the technique that I'm going for here. So I'm kind of like targeting exactly where I want them to overlap. And I'm like using different colors as I work. Yours may end up looking different, which is totally fine. And then you're just going to kind of like fill your page with these different colors. The quicker you work, the more you'll get like crossover. But if your circles are starting to dry, you can always drop in some water and help them bleed together just a little bit. If you don't use enough water, sometimes your paints will dry too quick, especially if you're like mixing colors and stuff. And then once they're completely dry, you can go over them with the glazing technique. So like this circle that I started with ended up pretty light and I want it to be a darker color. So I'm actually going to glaze over it, which is just adding another layer and some more water to it. You don't want to do that too much because we want to see kind of some of the places that it's bleeding. So I just added some water to make it bleed a little bit more. So you can play around with that technique here as well. And then you're going to fill in your entire piece of paper. Once it's filled, you can snap a picture and upload it to the assignment.